Okay, with the vertebra, we're going to look at a couple of structures that pretty much all vertebrae have. All right, so this is called the body, and then the hole in the middle that's called the vertebral foramen. You have the spinous process in the middle, and then what I call the airplane wings are called transverse processes. You can pretty much look for those structures on all of the vertebrae, and the difference is going to be the shape of the body, the shape of the vertebral foramen, and then even the spinous and transverse processes are going to be a little bit different. This structure right here is called a pedicle. It connects the body to the transverse process. All right, so here are our three types of vertebra right here. And you can see the difference in each of the three. So we're going to start with this one down here, and we're going to look at how it was different than the one that we just saw. So this is the body, and notice it has a triangular vertebral foramen. It has two extra holes. Those two extra holes are called transverse foramen, and then it has a very short spinous process. Now you'll notice on this one, the transverse processes don't stick out like airplane wings. They're very short right here, and they surround the transverse foramen right there. Anytime you see three holes in a vertebra, that lets you know that this is a cervical vertebra. So for cervical, you're looking for a short spinous process, a triangular vertebral foramen, an oval-shaped body, and especially you're looking for the extra holes right here. The second type of vertebra is the one we actually looked at first, but this one is called a thoracic vertebra. You have the airplane wing type transverse processes. You have a very long spinous process, and if you turn it this way, you can see the length of it. It has a round vertebral foramen, and it has a heart-shaped body. So you can see the heart shape right here. And so this one again is called thoracic vertebra. And then we have our lumbar vertebra. Now, if you look right here, you can see it has a triangular vertebral foramen. The only other one that had triangular vertebral foramen was the cervical vertebra, but we know that this one is not cervical because it does not have two extra holes. Also, the body is extremely thick. So if you hold it like this, it's about maybe an inch thick. Compared to the cervical, you can see is very, very skinny. Okay. Now, you also need to know how many of each type of vertebra you have. With cervical, you have 7. With thoracic, you have 12. With lumbar, you have 5. So to help you remember, you eat breakfast at 7, lunch at 12, supper at 5. And that's in the order from the neck down through the shoulders, the middle of the back, and then the lower back right here. This vertebra right here is actually two separate ones. You have these fusion lines here for your 5 sacral vertebrae. So you have 5 sacral vertebrae that are fused together to form this whole bone right here, what we call the sacrum. And then we have this small part down here called the coccyx, which is what we call the tailbone, and it's anywhere from 3 to 5 fused vertebrae. This specific one has 4, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. But that's your coccyx, and again, it's 3 to 5 fused coccygeal vertebrae. Now, C3 through C7 look like this one that we saw a while ago. Whenever we're talking about vertebrae, if you did an MRI or an X-ray or something, you would see that they number those vertebrae. The C, of course, stands for cervical, T would be for thoracic, L for lumbar. And so if it's C3, then they're going to say that that's how they're going to name it. If it's your 3rd cervical vertebra, they're going to say C3. But C1 and 2 have their own shapes and own features that make them kind of distinct. Now, if you look at this one right here, you can still tell that it is cervical because it still has 3 holes. Here are your 2 transverse foramen out here to the sides, and then you'll notice the very large seashell shaped vertebral foramen right here. It has no body or spinous process, and then these smooth areas, these are going to articulate with the skull. Articulate means to form a joint. And then these smooth ones that are a little bit more circular, those are going to articulate with the 2nd cervical vertebra. The other name for C1, which is this one, is called the atlas. Now we have C2. We also know that this one is a cervical because you see 1, 2, 3 holes. This one still has the body. This one does have a spinous process, but if you turn it to the other side, it has another structure right here that sticks up. So I'm going to turn it this way. That little process right there is called the dens, or the odontoid process. So if I were to take C1 and I showed y'all the smooth parts, those two are going to articulate like this. So they're going to sit together like this, and that dens, that process, is going to stick up through there, which is why that hole in C1 had to be so big. The other name for C2 is also called the axis. So you have atlas and axis right here.